Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us with Hustle with G. Today, we're going to be talking about real estate and inflation and how it's affecting us in Vancouver today. And today, my guest today we have is Lyle Patel. He's the founder of Horizon Data Incorporated, the CEO of Cotactic Media, the president of GS Property Management, and is an active real estate investor with investments ranging in condos, homes, and thousands of square feet in commercial property. Above all, my father, Lyle Patel, thank you for being a hustler on Hustle with G.
Oh.
Let's get right into it and let's talk
I didn't know
about what's happening.
I never was referred to as a hustler, but
Well, it is our channel, and we do believe that you are a hustler today.
okay.
Let's get right into it. I have a couple of things that I want to get into with you. So, I just got a news article saying Vancouver is now ranked the dead last for housing affordability amongst all North American cities. I'm going to give you some statistics, and I want to tell you.
I don't think I need statistics to. I mean, Vancouver is a very unaffordable city, hands down. I mean, there's no argument for me on that.
Right.
A lot of things contributed to it, and of course, inflation has increased pricing all across the map. But Vancouver and Toronto in Canada have been.
I'm glad that you brought up inflation. With all the viewers that don't know, can you dumb me down and unpack what inflation is today and why we should be looking out for it as a young entrepreneur in Vancouver? Why is it important to us as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so it's very important to understand what inflation is, and the best way to understand it is, when you, like you started off, you said Vancouver real estate is so expensive, and so is Toronto, and it's a lot of these big cities. But compared to what? Well, you're comparing it to the dollar, right? So is it the housing pricing going up, or is it the dollar going down in value? And so I would argue it's the dollar going down. And what's been happening, especially in 2020 during the pandemic, is governments across the world, especially in the US and Canada, have pumped a lot of money into the system. And what happens when you pump a lot of money into the economy?
When you mean pump money, do you mean the government is printing and manufacturing dollar bills for us?
Right. So yeah, essentially that's what.
Okay.
I mean, they use complex words like quantitative easing. And the typical layman who listens to the news and they see what's happening with the money supply, they don't really get a grasp of what's going on. But yeah, when you hear something like quantitative easing 1, that happened in 2007, 2008, when they had the first financial crisis. Now we're at 31, and they're just pumping money all the time. And what's happening is when you keep printing money, money is no longer money, as we already know, but everything else will go up in value because there's more dollars chasing goods and services. So for example, let me dummy it down. So, millennials, you guys all play Monopoly.
Right.
So let's say, Boardwalk is what, $350? And that's the prize, the cat's meow. Everybody wants to own Boardwalk because the rents are high and all that. So let's just suppose every time you pass go, instead of $200, you're now getting $500 or $800. When you land on go, let's say it's an open market. Let's say you land on Boardwalk, so that's $350. You may have 500 and you're willing to pay it. Somebody has 800 is willing to pay it. So they're bidding, right? And if it's an open economy, you still get the first right to buy it, but whatever the market is bear to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So if people start bidding and now it's 800, 900, now you're wondering what the hell? Boardwalk was the $350 property on the card, right? But it was because there's so much more money being pumped into that game, and we're playing the real game of the world, where all asset prices going up. So when you as most millennials and Gen Zs look at it and say, wow, property prices are going up, well, it's going across the board, but also a lot more in the big cities like Toronto and Vancouver, and that's inflation. And it's not only happening to that, it's happening to the gas, cars, pretty well anything you see out there, right? So that's inflation. Okay. Inflation is actually dollar value going down and causing the price of everything else to go up.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense to me. I'm going to bring up some statistics in Vancouver. The average person, the average across the board is getting paid $63,000 a year. The top 10% is getting $97,000 a year. The top 1% is getting $244,000 a year, and the top 1% of the top 1% is $776,000 a year. Now, looking at these statistics, we have to be in the top 1% to afford a house in Canada. Now, what is
Not necessarily. I think, people misinterpret that and thinking, I mean, of course, you live in Vancouver, so you think, Vancouver is a place to live.
Right.
But, there are a lot of more affordable cities. And you'll see a trend now of most people migrating from the big cities of Toronto, Vancouver, even some in Montreal, moving to places like Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Edmonton. And the reason why, you've hit it right on the head, it's affordability.
right?
And what's happening with the inflation. I mean, going back to what you're talking about inflation, I'm just going to add on because I think it's very important for younger people to understand how inflation impacts everyone. Inflation is like the silent tax. So instead of taxing you, like for example, if the government wanted to tax 100% of your capital gains on interest that you earn, they probably wouldn't get voted into government, right? But if they say, hey, if they increase inflation to 5%, but not even, there's no vote, there's nothing, all they're doing is pumping money into the economy, who does that really affect? It affects, so in a sense, if you're getting 5% on your money and 5% on inflation, basically you're eating into your capital. You're not making any money with your money being in the bank. And that's it's like taxing you at 100% of your capital gains on what you get on your interest. So
wait, my question is then, so if we are the most least affordable housing market, how does a aspiring entrepreneur that wants to stay in the Vancouver market and wants to thrive in these big cities, so the big cities that are the least affordable, I'm going to rate them from 1 to 10, 1 being the highest, Vancouver is at the top, Boise, Toronto is 3rd, Portland 4th, Hamilton 5th, Las Vegas, San Jose, Los Angeles, Ottawa. Right? So now let's say aspiring entrepreneurs want to stay in Vancouver, Boise, or Toronto. What do they need to start looking out for and paying more attention to every day so they can stay there?
So I don't believe in that. If you're really a true inspiring entrepreneur, and I live in Vancouver, we live in Vancouver,
right,
but we've lived here for a long time. But if I were new to this country and I was an entrepreneur, I would understand money a lot better. And when you understand money, you wouldn't live in an environment that doesn't allow you to grow as fast. So, for example, it's like fighting gravity. You want to live in Toronto, you want to live in Vancouver, it can be a very difficult. Yeah, you can be, and when you say aspiring, I'm saying, groundworks, working from the, roots and trying to make it up, bootstrapping a company.
Right.
It's not like you're getting 10 million funding and things of that nature. So if you're starting a small business, I recommend moving to towns where you can cash flow some properties, at least see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, if I tell you that houses in Vancouver are $4 million and you need a $1 million down, it doesn't matter what kind of aspiring entrepreneur, it's going to be very difficult to get that.
And this is not just for entrepreneurs.
It's
this is across the board.
So you're not getting, I mean, I'll be honest with you, in the neighborhood that we're in, even if you have 2 doctors or 2 lawyers, they're not living in the west side of Vancouver, right? So it's very difficult. So I don't even want to engage in that conversation. If you want to live in Vancouver, I would recommend you to invest in properties that are in thriving or cities that are going north.
The smaller economies where
the government provides incentives for you to invest. For example, in Vancouver, let's just take Vancouver because you brought that up. I mean, you can't increase rents more than 2%. Inflation's at 5%. So you're already losing. Where is your play in trying to make money here? So you're not going to make money. And then the other thing is, the older generation say you should save money, but you're not going to be able to save either in this economy. And I'm not saying this to deflate you. I mean, saving, you put it in the bank, maybe 1%. And again, inflation's at 5%. What is what the government is saying? It's probably over 10, 12%. So it's very difficult. So my recommendation is any business, and I think any business that can be done remotely, I would get out of Dodge City, go out of a town that limits you, and go to more prosperous cities.
Okay.
I mean, look at the guy Elon Musk. He moved from California to Texas. Why? Because the laws, the government incentives were a lot more favorable for him. So most entrepreneurs, and you're talking about aspiring. That's how you have to think.
Are you saying entrepreneurs should be looking where they can get the
where you have the best environment
with the tax, or
the best environment for growing, moving forward? So
So what statistics would an entrepreneur look at when they want to move to another city to thrive? So let's say Vancouver's way
for
too
example,
expensive.
for example, if you look at where did I invest my last properties in? I invested in Alberta, right? In Edmonton. Why did I go in Edmonton? Well, because the landlord laws were more favorable to the entrepreneur. They allow me, if I want to, not that I want to, but if I want to change a tenant or move a tenant out, I just have to give 30 days notice. In BC and also in Ontario, the laws protect the tenant more than the landlord. So, if you're a landlord, where's the investment incentive? You can't increase rent. There's no play, right? And I'm a cash flow investor. I don't invest for appreciation, right? So, but anyway, I went off on a tangent. But I don't try to discourage you from wanting to live in the big city. But if the question was if you're aspiring, then you should have the lens of where can I make the most money. So you want to be in an environment that is conducive to growth.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to grow in a environment that doesn't allow you to have the benefits, and they keep taxing you, and it's like fighting gravity.
Do you think
right?
the government is pushing away the more aspiring, hard-working earners that want to do something great, but they have to go somewhere else to make their money now?
I think it's challenging, and I think most
because with the housing prices here, it's unaffordable, and it's only so you have to be making an average of $260,000 a year just to afford an actual house in Vancouver, and that's if it's top 1%.
And that's if you're a capitalist and you're making it as a business. I mean, even if you were a doctorate and you're making that kind of money, it'd be very difficult if you were the single source. I mean, it's very difficult to make that kind of money. One thing you do need to learn, a lot of people should learn, is that you need to know how to use debt and taxes. And I could talk about that all day, but you need to know how to use debt and taxes, because that's cheaper money than money made on the positive side of the equation, right?
Right. Okay, let's move on. I want you to unpack to us. So the OECD data shows that we have 1,340,000 vacant homes all across Canada right now. Why do you think that is?
Vacant homes?
Vacant homes. Canada now has over 1.3 million vacant
homes. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do.
And the government is also taxing
empty homes. Yeah.
And empty homes.
Yeah. So I have a property that we just emptied out. Actually, it's very timely you said that. Just this morning, I emptied out our home in Richmond.
Okay.
Just by the airport here in Vancouver, and I was actually happy. I was happy to get it emptied because, tenants, it's very hard to change tenants, and the only time I can increase or make a different play on the property is when it becomes vacant. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of the tenant when they leave. So I think the big reason why there are a lot of vacant homes is owners don't want to fill it up. Like, for example, I don't want to put another tenant in there unless I get a good cash flow.
Why is that? Why not just have a larger?
Well, I'm going to try to turn it. Yeah, you can only raise rent so much. So I mean, if it's a $2 million home, I don't think someone wants to pay $14,000 to live there. So it's not going to break even on a cash flow basis. But we're going to turn it into a daycare. So it'll have some cash flow, and
but that promotes more people to start a business. So a daycare.
Yeah, but it's got tax benefits as well. So you look at there's a lot of avenues to make money in the real estate.
Do you think the government has a big say in how much you make and how much your earning potential is across the board in Canada?
Because I think so. Big influencer, because we're living in a very it doesn't matter, and it's not like I'm political with the Liberal Party or the Conservatives or NDP. I think regardless of who comes in power, money printing is going to always be there. But we live in a socialist environment. It's very difficult to have a lot of the benefits incentivizing entrepreneurs and business people to do what they want. But you have to go around it. We play with the cards that we get. So I mean, I understand we live in a socialist environment, but hey, I can't play. In Vancouver, I went to Kelowna because there's student rentals, and now I capped out there. So now I'm going to Alberta. My money's going to go where the environment's better to make money. And I think entrepreneurs like yourself and younger generation should also see where's the best environment for me to grow. I mean, and if you're not in that right environment, you're not going to go. Like, for example, here's an example. If you get a baby shark and you put it in a small aquarium, a small little, it's never going to grow to its full size, right? So if you really want to grow, you want to be in an environment that is conducive to growth.
So that brings me back to Vancouver, because Vancouver being the most expensive place to stay, isn't more of the opportunities there,
it's limiting. I would say it's for entrepreneurs, it's very limiting. I mean, if you look at the demographic of the people that have moved here and shifted the pricing up, they're already retired people. They're people that have money from China or from Asia and all these places. They're not coming here looking for a job at McDonald's and buying a house for $4 million, right?
No, of course not.
And if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, you are starting at the ground roots. It's very difficult. And I'm not saying
but
to
is it not possible? Is it
Everything
not possible?
is possible. I think it's very possible. But I think your first objective as an entrepreneur should be to make cash flow, make money, and start a business. I would recommend doing that in an environment, or do it in Vancouver. There's nothing wrong. You make a lot of money here. Just don't think of wanting to be in an ownership situation right away in a home. Right away. You'd have to have that business thrive really well, and then make sure it's cash flows. Fundamentals should be there. Then you buy.
Let's take this back to you. When did you decide that I'm going to start buying real estate, and why did you start?
So
unpack to me, how did you start the real estate after your businesses that you were running?
So there's two things. There's the hamster wheel, and then there's evergreen. So hamster wheel was while you're running your business. It's making money all the time, but you need something
that's like cash flows. You mean?
Yeah, well, it's like it's cash flow while you're working. But as I got older, when I get 40, I was thinking, I can't run, the companies that I have forever, and I want something more on the passive income side, which makes money. Then when I started learning more about how the money system works here, I felt, hey, you know what? I need to buy assets that make money when you buy, and they go up in value. And you want to leverage as much doing that, because going back to inflation, when you're on the positive side, inflation hurts you big time. When you're in debt, now this is very key.
Can you unpack that? You said when inflation is going higher, we're in...
Okay, so let me simplify this for you. So when you have I'm going to make it very simple. So when you have a bank balance, you have a plus side and you have a minus side. Let's say you have 100,000. Yeah, so you have 100,000. When it gets down close to zero, you start getting a feeling of anxiety and panic. You don't want it to go in the negative, right? It's like natural. Your bank balance.
Are we just talking about? Oh, sorry. We're talking about the bank balance.
Yeah, so you don't want it to go into the negative.
Right.
Investors like me, we live in the negative, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, cost of money on the positive side. Let's say you need $50,000. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. It'll take you 2 years. You'll get taxed 50%, assuming you make $100,000 a year. You're going to get inflation working against you, and at that time when you're ready to purchase an asset, the asset's probably already gone up in value as well. So you're always playing. You have this force of gravity against you on the positive side. Debt, if you can get debt, which is very easy to get, it's at 2%. So the cost of money on the debt side, but it's dangerous, because you have to know it's like a double-edged sword. You want to be in debt, but it's got to be smart debt. That's why I always recommend buying businesses that cash flow, or buy assets like real estate that cash flow that you can leverage. So real estate is my choice because you leverage 5 to 1. So I could put 20,000 and I could buy 100,000, or I could put 200,000 and get a $1 million property. Now, so what I'm saying is, on the positive side, inflation works against you. When you're in debt, and on a real estate that's cash flowing, the inflation actually helps you pay off your debt faster. So this is how you get exponential growth. So, but you got to invest it in smart. You don't buy something that you hope that it will appreciate. You need to buy something, even if it breaks even as cash flow. Make sure you get that debt leverage, and make sure it cash flows, and don't worry about inflation. Let it ride. The faster the inflation goes, the faster your pay down goes on your debt. So that's why when I say as an investor, as soon as if I have 200,000 in my hand, I want to buy something right away. I don't want to hold on to it. I hate being on the positive side, but I make sure I buy the smart asset. So when I say we live in the debt zone, we live in the debt zone. I see pain with people who have cash. Like, for example, you watch the old movies, and the villain opens a safe, and he's got gold coins there, and he's got wads of cash. Nobody holds cash. Cash is depreciating in value. Nobody does that anymore. These are the 60s, 70s. You want to get rid of cash. It's like like Superman kryptonite.
I agree with that. Now,
You don't
has
wanna-
COVID affected this in any way? And is it going to change anything
So-
going forward?
COVID made me want to invest more, and as you can see now, when I was mentioning inflation about 8 months ago, and now every Tom, Dick, and Harry's talking about it. It's on all the news, and they're wondering why. Well, of course, you print this much money. What did you expect to happen? They printed 3.8 trillion. That is more than 20% of all the money supply in the entire U.S. that they've ever printed. So you print that, and you think it's not going to make a dent. Inflation is going to go up, and I'm sorry to say it's probably going to go up to 15, 18%. And when you hit hyperinflation, what happens is you're going to have a inequality.
So how do we fight that?
So
Inflation's going, the price of dollars
inflation
is
will
going.
help the rich in that their asset values go up. The ones that don't have assets, it gets them further behind. So the middle class are getting squeezed. How can you fight that? Well, I mean, you're lucky. I mean, I can give you great advice, and you already bought some properties, right? But you want to buy, and you want to be in smart debt. I'll tell you, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand
Just break down for all the audience, what is smart debt and what is
Smart debt is when you take debt that pays for itself and gives you some money in your pocket. So it's paying for itself. So if I buy a property,
So give me an example.
and my
of this.
mortgage is, let's say, $1,000, and if I make $1,500 a month in rental income after all expenses and everything, I'm pocketing $500. That's a good asset because I only put 20% down to buy that asset. The rest is the bank's money, and the biggest transfer of wealth is going to be from lender to borrower. And so you want to be on that pace. So you want to make sure your money's in debt, smart debt, I call it, and make sure it's not, you don't go buy a boat. And then inflation will help you pay down that debt a lot faster as well. So it's already being taken care of by tenants or, any sort of thing that cash flows. I can explain in more detail,
No, that
but
makes
I think
sense.
I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible.
That totally makes sense. Okay, last thing here before we wrap up. I have an article here saying that on average, 33% of parents have been gifting Vancouver first-time home buyers an average of $340,000 on average for their
course.
first down payment.
Well,
Now, if someone is not lucky enough to have
I don't-
mommy or daddy to pay
Very
300,
difficult. It's not going to happen. Because, I mean, when they say gifting, that's probably the only way that most people would be able to buy, expensive home in Vancouver.
but then there are jobs that could, go up to 100,000 could sustain it.
If you have
So-
a job that pays you $100,000, you probably qualify for $500,000 to $600,000 by yourself. But you'll need some protection. You need some history. I'm not here to deflate, but I want to be very honest. You want to invest. I would not think of Vancouver or Toronto as places to want to buy property right now. You're cheaper off renting.
Renting, okay.
Because rent it's a renter's market because your rent is going to be cheaper than your mortgage payments and all your other expenses that go on if you want to live in Vancouver. If you really want to be in an ownership situation, you want to go to towns like Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, etc.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing as an investor. So I'm not just telling you. I do that. All my investment properties are in states or provinces that are more favorable for investing.
Right. Okay. So I think that comes right to the end. We went through the
A lot
top.
of stats.
Yeah, and, I've been doing a lot of studying of real estate in Vancouver since we are in one of the
I don't
most
study,
expensive
but
places. So I just want to make sure that for other people that don't know, what can they do if they're already in Vancouver and they do want to make a great living here? Since we do have the most diverse crowd here. We are probably one of the most social, outgoing people. Everybody loves Vancouver, Toronto.
So my first question would be, how married are you to the city? And by that, and this is one of the main reasons why
Why are you in the city?
I've been here for almost 40 years. I mean, I'm
Right,
not going
so-
anywhere. But I'm saying, it's a good question because if I came here today, right, and I know what I know now, and if I started with zero, like if you gave me, $1,000, said, okay, you got to make it in this town, I'd take a quick look around with the knowledge I have, and I'd get out of Dodge City because you're not gonna.
Where would you go and what would you do with
I'd
that
probably go
house?
up north. I'd probably go to, or right now I'd probably go to Red Deer, Alberta, where I can pick up a property for $100,000, maybe do a couple of flips of some cars or something like that, make some money, and then try to invest in something like.
Let's say we go that route. Let's say
But I'm
entrepreneurs
saying-
do go that route. They go to the suburbs. They make their money. when can they make a decision on, I want to move to the big cities in Canada, in the US?
They can do that anytime they want. I mean, I think that when you start making money in a certain place,
What
you're
does
not going to
making
want
money to you mean? Like, making money means a lot to everybody else. Like, what is making money? What qualifies of making money and you want to be in Vancouver or in the big cities?
So as long as your cash flow is positive, so
Okay.
you can start buying and acquiring assets that pay for themselves. It'll make you not work for money, but the money will start working for you. That's what called make. I should be money makes me rather than I make money. But I would go to areas that allow me to be able to do that. See, just put for your younger audience that will watch your show and that you talk to, if you can't visualize the light at the end of the tunnel, right, then you're not going to be able to do it. So you ask them, hey, in Vancouver, do you visualize yourself owning a home in 10 years? And I'm not taking you have to be, down on yourself. I mean, a lot of people are very ambitious and they've got a great vision, but really make sure it's realistic. Have a realistic plan. Like if you ask me, I have a realistic plan. If I had nothing, I'd go to a small town, probably in a favorable province where I can sell a few odds and ends and eventually get into business. But I can visualize that. If I had nothing and I was in Vancouver, I don't see the vision. I have ambition. I have positive thinking. That will get you so far.
You need more than ambition.
You need a little more. You need a game plan, right?
Right.
And so if you don't have that game plan, you can't visualize it. I don't think it's very attainable. I think I can get further in 5 years in a small town than I could in Vancouver. Vancouver, and it's not like you're or I or anyone is leaving Vancouver, but Vancouver has left you a long time ago. It's going so fast forward, and it's going at 20 miles an hour, and if you're walking 5, it doesn't matter how fast, you're not catching up, right? So just think about how fast that train's moving, and, am I able to keep up pace? It's an unforgiving city, right? And I'm not saying it just to be down on everyone, but, if you want personal advice, your friends, I can give them some good, things to do in other towns, but I mean, if they're married to this town, then you got to play with the rules that are here, and the game is a lot faster here. If you can keep up, then no problem, right?
Right. Well, so I'm hearing is that it's hard to take risks in Vancouver the way you would take risks somewhere else.
It's not hard to take risks, but the risks are going to be very expensive.
Okay.
They're
So
going
it's
to cost
expensive
you.
risks.
You're going to learn a lot, but you're going to be broke in the process.
And one other question to end it off: why hasn't the school systems kind of taught us or teach us about inflation and how the money works in Vancouver? Because I've been in Vancouver for all my life. A lot of my friends have, a lot of people that I know. We've never really touched on the topic on what do we have to do to live in Vancouver. Now I'm looking at it now just because the inflation is now actually.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do. I mean, the school systems don't teach about money, and relatively a lot of things that are happening are relatively new. Like even since 1970, the money's been on a
we
slow
were printing
decline.
money all the time. Inflation
All the time,
was
but
always happening, but just now.
These little nuanced changes are happening so fast. I mean, how does a teacher come into classroom and tell you that, hey, inflation is at 5%. I'm a teacher. I barely get 5% raise per year, so I am pretty well on slow poison, dying myself. I mean, it's hard for them to tell you that. They don't see it that way. They think that, and everyone's got a positive attitude. I just think that a lot of the education that you're going to get about money is going to be outside of the school curriculum. They'll teach you macro in school, but they're not going to be able to explain exactly how the monetary system is working.
If you were in your 20s and 30s, where would you go for knowledge on money and how it works and all the things that people should know if they ever wanted to live in Vancouver? What would you
guys,
do?
one thing that you guys have going for you for your age, because when I was young, we didn't have all these podcasts and stuff. So nowadays, I listen to Money Talks. I have, George Gammon's a great guy to listen to. I listen to a lot of things that relate about economy, money, and all that stuff. You have the tools available now. And before we didn't have that. We just have to watch CBC and figure it out, but they wouldn't give you the real scoop of what actually is happening. So I think you guys have the tools now, but the world's moving a lot faster. You just gotta keep up. I mean, you got the hustle mentality, which is good. I think a lot of people that have that, it's good to see. Mm-hmm. I want to see everyone, all people of your generation, do better, and I think you guys can. I just think sometimes you may have to change the environment a bit just to get further ahead than where you can.
Okay, last thing before we wrap up. For all of us that are aspiring to be in the top 1%, what are some things that we can listen to or read? What are two audio programs that you can offer to us that I can put the link below our video for people that want to move to that 1% tile group in all of Canada, because that's where.
So regardless of what business you want to be in, so I know you're in the water business and you're a real hustle. You like to do the delivery and everything, and you know some other people are in online business. We all want to grow it. But I think at the end of the day, what are we all doing? We're all trying to make cash flow. We're trying to make money. So it comes down to the basics. Understand what money is. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what money is, and it's this elusive thing that we're all trying to chase after. Mm-hmm. When you realize that money is something that has no value or is going down in value, you don't want money, you want cash flow. It's like you don't want gasoline, but you need it. Your car needs it because you got to drive from A to B. You got to go home to the office, and it's something that you need. So money is a tool. It's not something you want to keep in abundance. So when I hear some of your friends say, "I want to be a millionaire," like break it down. What do you want? You don't want to be a millionaire. You want $30,000 a month. $40,000 a month in cash flow. Mm-hmm. That's attainable. That's a visual that you can probably. So, how many properties do you need? How many businesses do you need? There's some plan that you can put together to make that happen. And yeah, if you do $30,000 a month, in my books, you're a multimillionaire, right? Okay. Right, in cash flow, right? So make it easy on yourself. Don't make it. So learn about money. I think there's a lot of. Books. I think some of the good ones is the one I liked, by Gary Keller, the millionaire real estate investor. Mm-hmm. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a good series that you can get into because that tells you a lot. If you want money in a more complex, more macro view, listen to George Gammon. He's got a podcast, the Capitalist Show, Rebel Capitalist Show. That's really good for learning about what's happening in the money supply. And just if you know what money is, you have a better chance of going there.
Right. No, we should all educate ourselves on the concept of money and how it works.
Yeah, and then do the other education too. How to build a business, how to grow it. That's all important. The skills you need to hire employees, keep employees. All that's part of it, but it all to that goal of why you want money. Like your goals for money are different.
Someone else would be different.
And someone else's goals for money would be different. Mm-hmm. It depends on how they view it. Mm-hmm. So I'll leave you with this. Remember, I tell you all the time, I think this is valuable for your listeners, the difference between money and wealth. Money is measured in cash, and wealth is measured in time. So, for example, someone who works at fast food has a wealth of maybe 2 months to go. So the goal is you want infinite wealth, and then you call yourself wealthy, meaning I don't have to work, or I have systems in place so that my businesses, my real estate, everything is functioning with very little of my systems. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're going to achieve. So try to achieve, so when you look at money, but try to get to the wealth state, which is you want to look at passive income. Mm-hmm. So, earlier when you were asking what made me want to get into real estate is because when I hit 40, I go, I don't have the same energy as I had when I was your age or when I was, younger. And so I need to start putting a time crunch. I got to start getting things that are working for me instead of against me, right? So I would try to get things working on passive income, right? So,
well, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Stuff.
Thank you for being a hustler on Hustle with G.
I don't know if I'm a hustler, but